Hey there, it's Rachel Mullins, the host of Hashtag No Filter Fridays on Public House Media.
Hello.
Hey, man, what's going on?
Hey, Jay, what's up, man?
You ready to talk movies?
I'm ready to talk movies. Let's do it.
Nice.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Fear and There. I am Zachary and I'm calling in from Beacon, New York.
And I'm Jay, calling in from New York City.
Well, congratulations, Jay from New York City. You are our weekly winner. You get to participate in this week's special significant other edition of Fear and There.
Oh, nice.
Featuring my wife, Mandy Berman, who's sitting right beside me. Mandy, would you care to say hello?
Hello.
Unbelievable. She truly has a facility with words. And Jay, do you have anybody special with you?
Yes, I do. I actually have 4 guests on the pod. You forgot to mention your cat, so I think it's already it.
No, I deliberately left her out. She's being punished.
Oh, I see, yes. Well, I have my lovely girlfriend and live-in girlfriend, my roommate here, Julie May Hublard-Hirschman. Would you like to say hello?
Hello. You revealed my full name.
I did, yes. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay, I'm happy it's okay.
We can edit your full name out later if you're worried about, I don't know, hacks, identity theft.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can bleep it out if you want. I mean, I can also say your social right now, if you like that.
Oh, you should bleep it out so that people might think that your name is like Julie, like, I don't know, fuckhead Hirschman or something terrible.
Julie Roberts.
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts Hirschman.
What's Julia Roberts? What's her middle name? Yeah, Julia Roberts Hirschman. What a beautiful name.
Oh, man.
I was trying to come up with a famous Julie, but the closest I got was Julia Roberts. Not
Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews is the first one.
Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews Hirschman.
Well, anyway, this is a very exciting episode, and I'm so glad to have been selected as the prize winner to participate, Zach. Thank you.
I mean, really, what were the odds? There were a whole bunch of names in a hat, and I pulled one of them out. They all were Jay, but still.
Yeah. All 3. So the odds were literally 100%.
So this episode of Fear and There podcast is The Sixth Sense. We are talking about M. Night Shyamalan's 1999 massive blockbuster, The Sixth Sense, which is a film that I think, well, I can account for 3 of the 4 of us as having seen this film before. I know Mandy has seen it before. I have seen it before. Jay, I know you have seen it before.
Man.
Julie, had you seen this before?
I had seen bits about it. I knew about it. And I think the first time I sort of saw it was at a drive-in movie theater. I was like, I mean, if it was out in 99, I must have been like 7 or 8 years old that summer. And, the drive-in always shows a kid's movie first and then an adult movie after. That's when my sister and I were supposed to be like lying down in the back of the car with the seats folded down, pillows and blankets, like sleeping after our movie. And my parents saw The Sixth Sense, and I definitely saw some of it.
Oh, I see.
Wow.
I didn't even know that when I bought this on Apple TV last night. You didn't share any information.
I was saving the good stuff for the podcast.
Well, I think the good stuff, aka the bad stuff, because I think I know how you felt about this movie. But
well, I have to say, I have to jump in and just say, like, this is a movie, and we know this, at least Jay and I know this about Shyamalan's his predilections as a director, that he really loves origin stories. And I gotta say, Julie, your origin story of how you saw this movie is so good. It's so like romantic and 1950s, and like I mean, you saw this movie at a at a goddamn drive-in. That's in 1999 at the turn of the century.
And then
awesome.
I
think that's awesome.
And then a tornado came, and then Bill Paxton saved everyone's lives.
No. Do you happen, Julie? Do you happen to remember what the kids' movie was that you saw?
Oh, I don't. It wasn't as memorable.
Well, that's
I guess.
When did this come out? Was it like 1999?
It must have been the summer of '99 because we only went to the drive-in on Cape Cod over the summer.
So I mean,
It's wonderful.
Was it? No, Toy Story was 95, right?
I mean, I was 7.
I mean, there's any number of movies it could have been.
Yeah, Toy Story was a little earlier, I think, because I was actually a kid when Toy Story came out, whereas I was in middle school
Right.
for Sixth Sense.
Well, so actually, Mandy, you this is the part of the podcast where we talk about context. As you know, I mean, you have been on this show before, and so have you, Julie. So, context-wise, I mean, what did you? As we watched this movie, and I know for both of us, Mandy, it was a rewatch.
Indeed.
But I don't know. I mean, do you? I don't know. In your life, have you thought about The Sixth Sense? What does it mean to you, The Sixth Sense, the movie?
So that's
do you remember
a great question, Zach.
Where were you when The Sixth Sense came out, and how did The Sixth Sense inform you as a person?
So I'm glad you asked. I actually have I feel very old compared to Julie because I was 12 in 1999. So I was in 7th grade, and
you had already served 2 tours overseas, if I remember correctly.
And I have very distinct memories of kids coming into school and like ruining the twist.
Oh God!
When I was 12 years old and not having seen it, so I always knew about the twist from like the minute it came out, but I didn't actually see it until maybe about 5 years ago when it was on Netflix, because pre-Zachary, I was not much of a scary movie watcher. I used to think that I hated scary movies, but I had heard that Sixth Sense was not actually that bad. And so I gave it a go 5 years ago. So this was a fairly fresh rewatch for me as well.
Nice. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like when I had spoken with Julie about which movie we were going to watch, she was like, "Ooh, I see dead people. I know exactly what happens." And I was like,
right.
And I was just like, oh, well then maybe you don't know the twist because that's not the twist people are talking about per se. Like,
right.
And so I was like, okay, woo. And I'm so happy at your restraint, Mandy, for not saying the twist right now, because we are still before the spoiler wall.
This is pre-spoiler wall.
So even though I just I have to say, Zach, if I'm just going to give my context, and it's just going to be like one sentence, and I think this is the least rewatchable film of all time.
Here we go. Yep.
For lots of reasons. And what I think is interesting is Julie had never really seen it fully. And this, because she knew that little kernel of what the twist was, which you can say in one sentence, less than a sentence, it feels like she was rewatching it too. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So
sure, but like you said, and we'll get to it. But like you said, Julie, it sounds like you didn't know. And well, actually, no. Let me not tempt fate here and accidentally elicit a spoiler before the spoiler wall comes down. Let's put a pin in this particular conversation,
okay, cool.
So we can breeze through our recommendation period, and then we'll put the spoiler down, and then we can start talking. I mean, the whole idea of a spoiler wall for the 1999 film The Sixth Sense, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, is ludicrous. It's just patently ridiculous at this point. I See Dead People is on every movie lists as like one of the most quotable, identifiable.
There was a whole scary movie franchise based around parodying the line "I see dead people."
Maybe you have a really young listener base that haven't gotten to all the old movies yet.
Zach and I are really going for that Gen Z audience. We're going to start. We're starting our TikTok campaign tomorrow. So
I know some Gen Zers. I know a few of them. Anyway, let's just breeze through this. This section is a recommendation section. Would you recommend this film? And actually, we could get some interesting mileage out of this section if you think about who has never seen this movie, who's never heard of this movie, and certainly who doesn't know the twist. Would you recommend this film? And I'll just, so I can get it out of the way, I would recommend this film. If somebody has never seen this movie and doesn't know what happens during this movie, then there are so many worse ways to spend an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours of your life. It is, we'll talk about what we thought about the movie in actual fact soon, but I would, certainly. Mandy, would you?
Yeah, of course. Of course I would recommend it. I think even if you know the twist, as I did the first time I saw it, it was still satisfying in some ways to watch it from that lens. Less so a second time.
Sure.
Like, less so a second time knowing the twist.
Right.
But, again, we'll discuss it. But, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Jay, how about you?
I mean, my answer is kind of twofold. It's kind of three layers, right? If you haven't seen this movie and haven't heard of this movie and don't know anything about it, my question for you is, where did you live in your life?
How did you get here? Yeah. How did you make it this far?
Yeah. But if that's the case, of course, this is, I think this twist is sort of what made Shyamalan's name. I think it was his second film, right? So
it was after a debut that was really, really poorly received, as I recall.
But an amazing film, Unbreakable, right? That was his debut.
No, Unbreakable, I believe, comes after A Sixth Sense.
Well, at any rate, I think The Sixth Sense puts the whole M. Night Shyamalan twist thing on the map, right? So,
yeah,
I think, and I think that it is a very effectively operated twist if it somehow avoids being in the zeitgeist, which it could not possibly, because like you said, it was a smash box office hit, right, when it came out. So the other layer of that is you kind of just need to see it to say you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, but you do know everything that happens in it, it is just part of the horror movie kind of canon at this point. And I think it is part of the M. Night Shyamalan canon, and he is a very singular person in cinema, for better or worse. So you kind of have to... You have to watch it to check it off, I think. So for those two reasons, I recommend it. If you don't care about any of that, I have like some pretty big problems with the merit of this movie being a rewatchable film.
Well, we're going to dig.
Yes,
there's really nowhere for our conversation to go other than there.
Right.
So that's where we're going to go right away.
Of course, yeah. And I think it becomes a rewatch if you like know the twist. Like, even if you haven't watched it, it loses a lot of its teeth if you know what's going to happen. So,
yes.
And so I think that's my thing. I can't really recommend this on its own merits because the world has ruined it.
Sure. Yeah. So, okay, good. Yeah. How about you, Julie? Would you?
Yeah, I agree with Jay. I can't even... I would say only if you really don't know what's going to happen would I recommend it. I wouldn't recommend a rewatch myself.
Yep.
Okay. Well, all right. So it's interesting. All right. So it's exactly kind of what we probably all four of us predicted. So let's put the spoiler wall down or up. Let's put it out.
Knock it down.
Let's knock it down.
No, we're not.
No, we don't want that. Do we want that?
So, all right, what I'll do is...
Oh, no, we do. No, that works too. God, every conceivable metaphor works with the spoiler wall. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And what we're going to do is we're going to build the spoiler wall up right now. And now I'm breaking it down. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So
are you going to be the one to tell everyone the spoiler?
Me?
Right now?
The host?
Yeah.
Me? No.
All right, I think Julie should do the honors because
Julie should do it.
She was perhaps the most cynical viewer of this movie.
As soon as Bruce realized that he was dead, I was just like, oh no! What a shock! I'm surprised.
Wait, I can't tell. Are you being sincere or sarcastic?
No, I was being totally sarcastic because I have not seen this movie, but I knew that. So
she really did look at me and like she looked at me and audibly did that little stupid sarcasm.
And I think like you were waiting because I didn't tell you ahead of time that I knew that part. And I think you were waiting for this look of shock on my face or realization or something, but you weren't getting it. It wasn't satisfying for you.
You told me you knew the I See Dead People quote, which is a reveal they give you, like halfway through the film. And so you don't really know what's wrong with him. You don't know what he's hearing or seeing. And you don't even really know it's a ghost movie until an hour into this movie, basically. So, like, that's what I thought you thought the twist was. Which is like, I guess, a twist, but it's really more of just a reveal.
Wait, Julie, did you like know literally because like you just knew through the folklore of the movie, or you were just able to predict it as you were watching?
I knew through the folklore of the movie. I wasn't like
okay.
Well, so I mean, it's interesting that you ask that question because like when you know, it is like so obvious that he's dead. The entire fucking movie. No one's talking to him. No one's acknowledging him. And it's like Shyamalan leaves so many stupid breadcrumbs that he doesn't even need to leave. Because it's like he's having fun. You know, he's like seeing how much he can get away with. And so it's kind of like... I don't know. It's interesting because I don't know. Because having seen it and knowing the twist, like, it's very obvious. But... It's a shame because none of us can go back to a time before to see if we could...
Well, let me ask, when Jay and Zachary, when you guys saw it for the first time, did either of you know the twist?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about.
Genuinely shocked the first time you saw it?
Sure. It's a great question. I don't think I was genuinely shocked because I remember in my household, my mom, who is also a big movie fan, loves M. Night Shyamalan. She always has... this movie and Signs, which I'll never watch again because of Mel Gibson. But those two movies are among her favorites. And she and I always enjoyed together movies with capital T twists in them. And just the virtue of telling someone that a movie has a good twist in it ruins the twist.
It does because you're like you're coding your viewing of the film.
And when it happens, and when the twist happens, instead of you being in the moment and awed by the twist and really having a good time with it, you instead have this kind of like reflexive, almost ironic remove where you're like, oh, here's the twist. I'm experiencing the twist. As opposed to just literally experiencing it without your own self-commentary. So, like,
Shyamalan has built a language about that. Like that.
Well, this is his.
That's his
MO,
thing. That's his thing, and he's tried so many different ways to trick people. And I mean, and it works in so many of his films. It works.
It does. It does work. Although we learned this with The Village that the test screenings reacted so poorly to the twist that he had to. It's like he craves public approval. He's not. He has a distinctive style, but he's not an auteur. Like anyway.
We watched The Village. I watched The Village for the first time like 2 years ago, and I didn't know the twist to that, and I loved that twist. Right. But I don't know if it's a better twist than this. Probably not. It probably just like you said, Jay. They're like sort of formulaic. They're cheap. So it's like, as a first time shock factor, it's great and satisfying, but like it doesn't necessarily run much deeper than that.
Although I would say, having rewatched The Village when we watched it,
do you think it's stronger?
I love The Village, and even knowing exactly how it plays out, I loved it even more. I think The Village is a very, very good underrated movie.
I think The Village is arguably could be considered his best, perhaps next to Signs. Like you have to not look through your Mel Gibson colored glasses on that one, Zach. Signs is an incredible.
No, I know that Signs is a good movie.
Zachary's never. I've always wanted to see Signs, but Zachary has never let us watch it.
Yeah, he's a fucking Holocaust denier. I'm not watching him.
It also
among many other things.
Exactly, among many other things.
It's problematic because Joaquin Phoenix is kind of like a crazy person too. So like.
I'm fine with his flavor.
Yeah, his craziness is...
Well, his crazy is not anti-Semitic, so,
Right.
Wait,
I do want to say... Oh, go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
I just wanted to ask Julie, have you seen The Village?
No.
Oh, interesting. Do you know the twist of The Village?
I know nothing.
God damn, maybe we should have watched that one.
Oh, yeah, maybe we should have in hindsight.
Okay.
Wait, Jay, Jay has to answer. Did you know the twist the first time you saw this?
Okay, so everyone get ready. I'm about to make a confession.
Oh, shoot.
Do you have a sound effect for this, too?
Yeah, boing, yoing, yoing. A nice cartoon sound effect. I actually have never seen this movie front to back until last night.
Oh.
Wow.
I'll be damned. That's surprising.
Yeah, so it kind of skipped me. I had seen parts of it. It was on TV lots. So I've seen, I think I'd seen probably all of it except for the reveal. Mm-hmm. Like I never made it to the reveal where that, like what I'm assuming everyone sees as the iconic moment where they montage flashback and Bruce Willis like gasps and flings himself against the wall and doesn't know what to do. I hadn't seen that moment. Like I kind of was curious to watch that moment, and I didn't think. I thought that moment was handled like way too indulgently.
Yeah,
but because there's so many other ways they could have revealed it that would have been more subtle and maybe more powerful. But anyway, no. So I hadn't seen it, and I just had seen lots of parts of it, and I knew what happened. So again, I don't think you need to have seen it for this to be a rewatch, quote unquote, to me. And that's like the point I think I'm making with this movie is the twist is so simple to spoil and so pivotal on the effect of this movie and what like keeps you entertained. Because otherwise it's a dry, slow movie, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, in thinking about how I wanted to frame our conversation tonight, I really quickly ran up against a wall, which was that this is not a deep movie. It's not a nuanced film. There are parts of this movie that feel like they are made for TV. It has extremely canned dialogue at times, in particular the ending that you're talking about when he is sort of whispering in her ear and she is carrying on with a full-on conversation with him while she's fast asleep, which is not, as we all know, anything that happens in real life. And like, I mean, it's not how humans behave when they're sleeping. That there is very little depth to this film. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there are a lot of terrific potboiler type movies that are incredibly enjoyable rewatches. We all have reasons for rewatching films. The movies that I have seen more often than any other are not movies that I would say are really deep films that illuminate new faces every time I watch. No, they're more like films that I have a really strong emotional connection to. And for whatever reason, I am comforted when I rewatch them.
Yeah, we did one of those films this week. We watched it twice this week.
You watched it. You made me watch it once in bed, and then the next. We're getting to that reveal, much like Bruce Willis is dead. The very next day,
Flintstones movie.
The very next day, we were at her parents' house, and they were trying to think of something to watch, and then somebody sang a song from this movie, and then they were like, "Oh, we should watch this," and Julie was like, "Fuck yes!" And I was like, "We just watched that shit last night,"
and I was like,
and she was like, "Doesn't matter."
It's The Wedding Singer.
The Wedding Singer. We have also indulged in a.
No, we're due for a rewatch of that. I beg for rewatches of that all the time, and you say no, it's too recent. But I think it was like 4 years ago.
I think,
which is roughly too recent for me.
Well, we've done it twice in the past week, so I say go for it.
It is a good movie.
That's a really good one, though.
It is a good one, but in my quest to come up with an angle for this conversation, I couldn't come up with anything that wasn't about the act of watching a movie itself. You know, that wasn't this kind of like postmodern take on the film, because this is a movie that, as we've already talked about 1,000 times, is so contingent on a narrative ploy. And I mean, both Mandy and I are fiction writers, and actually this is a great spot to plug Mandy's novels, which you can find at any online bookstore, retailer. Don't go into any stores right now, you'll catch a disease. So but like twists are
they need to know my last name. It's Berman. Berman.
Yeah, I was going to say Zach, your
H.
Great advertising.
Zach, your intent
said Mandy.
Your intent was great. But you need to work
your
on
full
your
name was
promotional
at the beginning
ability
of the podcast.
Yes.
Anyway, this movie really does beg the question of the act of watching, begs questions regarding the act of watching movies rather than it does any really, I don't know, interesting conversation about the film itself. So like, I don't know. I mean, I think we've already kind of run this topic, but I am interested to hear more. I mean, Mandy, you seem to want to say something because I'm looking at you and you gave me a little hand wave. What would you like to add?
Well, so I would like to argue for some depth in this movie, actually, and this is something I noticed only this time, coming from the loneliness angle, particularly of the son of a single mother who keeps 2 jobs and lives in a working class neighborhood. I think, like, actually subtly, the movie is portraying class and isolation, like, especially being the child of a parent who has to work all the time in order to keep you afloat, in a actually, like, a more subtle way than what the rest of the movie does. Like, the rest of the movie is not subtle by any means, but I was kind of like the ghosts as a kind of like corollary for like Haley Joel Osment's character needing like someone, but then that's who shows up, is actually kind of an interesting angle, but I don't know if it's like fully earned or fully fleshed out, and maybe I'm just like particularly interested in those parts because Toni Collette's performance is so wonderful and so human.
Academy Award nominee Toni Collette.
Like that scene where she calls the kid's parents, you know, after she finds the claw marks in his sweater, and she says, you know, I need you to like talk to your sons about keeping their goddamn hands off my kid. I don't know. She's just she delivers those kinds of lines and moments so well, and you sense such a fierceness in their relationship, and that to me is the best part of the movie.
Yeah, I think so. That's so interesting because to me, this specifically. So the class system thing. I mean, like, shout out again to Toni Collette. I think it's a great performance in this film, and like you see some shades of her Hereditary performance.
Exactly
in it, but. I mean, this to me feels like a love letter to like South Philly. This movie, there's so many establishing shots of like the fountain and the churches and those sort of those like very specific brownstones they have down there. And I can't help but like we should maybe shout out to, I mean, knock on wood, but we should shout out to Philly for helping our country in a big way this week. So
don't knock on wood. It's over.
It's over. It's fucking over.
Well, you don't know what's going to happen. Nothing's been certified yet. So, but yeah, and I think a big part of like South Philly and this area of Philly, I mean, there's a lot of like opulent things in Philadelphia right alongside these sort of small, very, very specific lower middle class houses. And that was very effective in this movie. You were really in it with this movie, and I'm wondering because I think Pennsylvania. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but that's where the Unbreakable / Split universe takes place. Is that correct?
I think so.
Well, he's from outside of Philly.
So, that's what it is.
Director.
Yeah. So again, this is added to the thing with M. Night Shyamalan, which I don't know if you were going to get to this, Zach. I think you and I both. I mean, you habitually call him Shamalama Ding Dong. So I have to assume you think he's a little bit of a joke, but he's the most indulgent writer director I think I've ever seen in a filmmaker, other than maybe like Christopher Nolan, you know, like other than him, he's like the most indulgent. So he really wants to layer on the Philly thing. He really wants to layer on the fact that he's building a twist. So like I agree with you, Mandy. I think a lot of the setting tools, a lot of those characterization tools were super effective in this movie, but I don't know what he was trying to do with them. Like, what really was his message in this movie, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it amounts to anything substantial. I definitely think that those elements are present in the film, but I honestly, I don't give him the benefit of the doubt.
I know you don't, Zach.
In terms of his screenwriting ability.
You don't even give him his real name.
I mean, looking at his filmography, there are a couple of films of his that I really like. I haven't seen The Visit a second time, though, so I wonder if that could be a film that also doesn't stand up to a rewatch. The Village I've now seen a few times and I think is absolutely terrific. But this movie, in fact, The Sixth Sense, I was fully prepared to really love this movie. I remembered it so fondly, and I didn't love it. It was surprising to me what it actually was like. I found it had been long enough since I'd seen it that I was surprised by it. Not in terms of its plot. The plot I remember is ingrained in my subconscious, but I was surprised by its quality, its variable quality. So,
Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I agree with you about the dialogue in particular, like especially with the wife, even at the beginning, where he gets his award,
His frame, nice frame,
and then at the end, you were never second. I mean, it was those were badly written scenes.
Very.
I mean,
very,
so much
cheesy
of this
enough to match the Treacly score.
Oh yeah, treacly is a good word for it. I mean, I think it's funny because we're talking about plot here. You're like, this film was very written. You can feel its writing in a way that I don't think is ever effective. But the thing that's interesting is, Zach, you and I talk a lot about horror films and pacing, and a lot of that in this movie is related directly to the writing of this film, obviously. And we love a slow burn. We like a movie that is careful and gradual and makes a concerted point to save things. I think in this movie, and again, we all rewatched it. We all knew it was going to happen. I think in this movie in particular, that was a detriment. It felt a little slow, and when it didn't feel slow, it felt overwritten. So, and Julie, I wanted to sort of kick it to you for this, because you said to me, what did you say to me right after this movie was over? What was your characterization of this movie?
Oh, I was bored.
Yeah, and I think you said you were like, there was way too much exposition.
Yeah, I mean it was like 50 minutes in, and I'm like, how much longer is there? Because I was like, nothing's been revealed. I'm not scared.
They haven't shown any ghosts at that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a long time for them to show the ghost.
Yeah, Jay, I think you said an hour into the film before. Well, this movie is bifurcated. I mean, once he is in the hospital, the Cole, and he says that he sees dead people, then you see dead people too, and the movie becomes a very different thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely a film that has a lot, and this is a problem with a lot of Shyamalan's movies, because he likes superheroes and he likes mythology and character mythology in that way. But I will say one thing about this film that I did admire. I thought there was some pretty good visual storytelling. I thought that a decent amount of character development is happening. Not so much, I mean, to use a kind of creative writing workshop cliche, not so much through telling, but rather showing. I liked the move towards the chair, move towards the door scene where Bruce Willis, where Malcolm is guessing things about Cole, and you're learning a lot about the kid. I thought that was an effective scene, just like I thought that it's an effective scene when Malcolm is listening to the tape of Vincent Gray, and he hears the ghost, the Spanish Spanish-speaking ghost. I thought those were effective scenes as far as sort of visual storytelling goes.
Yeah,
but it is as far as sort of boredom goes and action and revealing. One of my favorite parts of the film, and I think it's a badly written scene, but I do really like it regardless, is when Cole and Malcolm go out to the house in mourning out in the suburbs, and Cole finds this box with the videotape, and you learn about this sort of Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
I was entertained by that scene.
Yeah,
love a good Munchausen by proxy story.
They're all the rage these days. But I will just say my final comment on that is that I this movie, if this movie was a buddy comedy, but not a buddy comedy, sorry, not a comedy, just like a buddy drama, a buddy
like
mystery, a buddy
Bruce
thriller.
Willis is the sidekick of this superhero.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cole and Malcolm travel around the country,
Yep.
bringing. I mean, that's been done before, of course, but like they have a pretty good chemistry. And what's his face? What's the kid's name? I can't believe I'm forgetting it. Haley Joel Osment. He's really good. He's really, really good. And Willis is, stoic, stone-faced enough that he's. I mean, he's handsome, and I like him. I don't care if he's not a great actor. I just like him. So I could see those two just traipsing around and solving ghost crimes. I like that. But
yeah. Yeah, I think.
I want to. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I do think it's interesting that you bring that up because, like, I think that was the moment. So, like, I think that was the moment that I noticed that Julie was more invested in the movie. That like 7.5 minute sequence with the ghost, like right from when the ghost girl first sort of interacts with you with the.
Well, it's also Misha Barton, and I saw her name in the credits, but I was like, oh,
you like Misha Barton? Okay,
well, I don't. It was just a famous name that I was looking for.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that scene was probably, I would argue, the most compelling scene. It almost had nothing. It was just like, it was literally just Shyamalan's way of saying, like, this is how he finds out what he's supposed to do with these ghosts.
Yeah, but then you think back on that scene, it's like, where was that? Did this little kid just go alone when you think of the fact that he's with a ghost?
Super weird, yeah.
Like, that doesn't seem realistic.
Yeah, did he buy that bus ticket himself? Like,
yeah, that's a good point. How did he travel there?
Yeah.
There's like legit.
Where did his mom think he was for the 3 hours?
Did he cut school? Like, I don't know.
That's really funny. So I would like to shift gears at least for a little while before maybe we move into our ratings. But I want to talk a little bit about genre, about the idea of this movie as a horror movie. So I found an interview with Shyamalan that was not too long ago, as a matter of fact, where he goes on record saying that he doesn't make horror movies, that he makes mysteries. And he says, and the quote is that horror has its goal as solely scares, whereas this is something that's a mystery. This being, I think, The Sixth Sense in this case. So he says horror has its goal as solely scares. So I mean, as the co-host of a horror podcast, I'd just like to say that that's complete fucking bullshit.
Well, wait. When was this quote? Was this quote before or after the Visitor, or the Visit? The Visit.
The Visit. I'm pretty sure I pulled it from an interview. Oh gosh, I don't want to lie on the air. I may have read it in The Guardian, and I'm pretty sure it was 2019.
Damn. Okay, so he's a goddamn liar then, because that movie.
Yeah,
that movie uses very severely clear horror language. Like specific.
Yeah, no, of course it does. Sorry, I'm finding it I've got it here. It's actually the New York Daily, which is funny for a lot of reasons. But it was less than a year ago. He said The Sixth Sense is not a horror film, and he says he doesn't make horror films. He makes mysteries. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot here to explore, but I do wonder though, like. And I'm curious not to hear from you, Jay, because I'm tired of you, but from Julie and from Mandy, who are neither of whom are horror fans, so to speak. I mean, Julie has a ways to go. Mandy has come around in a big way to horror movies. But like, I don't know. I mean, when you think, Mandy, I'll ask you first, and then Julie, I'd love to hear from you too. Like, when you think of a horror movie, and then you think of The Sixth Sense. I mean, did you experience this film as a horror movie? Was it, and you could also more broadly, if you'd like, talk about scariness. Was this a scary film to you? I don't know. I just maybe speak on that for a little bit.
Less. I mean, I remember at least on the first watch, it was less scary than I had expected. I was scared at times. That jump scare in the school fucking sucks. I hate that.
Where they cut up to the gym, up the stairs to the gym, and you see the three hanging.
Which one?
The hanging people in the school.
I wasn't that scared by that. I was more scared by the
first time Yeah.
the clip, like when the clips at the top of his like fort thing were ripped open.
Clips at the top.
With Misha.
Yeah,
Misha Barton.
like
the
clothesline,
clothespins. Yeah, I think people talk about
clothespins.
two moments when they talk about the scariest parts of this film. One of them is that scene that Julie's talking about where she pops up right behind him. I guess it's Misha Barton, right?
Yeah.
Where she pops up
But
right
that was
behind
also
him.
more
and then,
disgusting to me than scary.
right. And then the other one people talk about is when the mom turns around in the kitchen and has all the cuts on her. That's pretty spooky. But
Yeah, that part's spooky. Yeah.
So wait, so Mandy, please, finish your thought.
Yeah.
What was my thought? Oh, just how scary. Yeah, that woman in the kitchen is also. I think the scariest parts are. I mean, I remembered that the first time I saw it, that jump scare in the school really scared me, so I knew to look out for it this time. But the parts that I think are the most sort of atmospherically scary are when he's alone at night. He has to run to the bathroom, or like he thinks he's going to find safety in his tent, but he doesn't, right? And I think that goes back to like what the scariest and most affecting aspect of this movie is, which is his loneliness, right?
Right.
And that these things only happen to him when he's alone. And I think like anytime I watch a scary movie, the time that I'm most scared is the night after seeing it, waking up in the middle of the night to pee and walking down the hallway. And
That's why we've got our sheep rating.
right?
That's why we've got our
there's
rating.
something behind me, and that those moments are captured, I think, particularly well.
It's so funny because when I pitch a film to you, there is such a world of difference. I mean, this just has to do with our associations, but like, if I were to pitch a film as a horror movie versus if I were to pitch it as a psychological thriller or a psychological mystery, it's a world of difference.
Yeah.
So it's funny to think about this film, to think about Shyamalan saying that this is not a horror movie but a mystery. I mean, I guess I can get behind it, but this is, to me, a horror film. I don't know. Maybe it's a go nowhere conversation because labeling is always fool's errand.
I can feel Julie ready to weigh in on this because she has some thoughts. So
I think it's less of a horror film. Like, and I'm not a horror fan. I have a long way to go, like you said. But like I don't know if maybe I might have been more scared had I not known about Malcolm being dead, but I wasn't scared overall. Like, we've been watching a horror series, and I was much more scared watching that.
Oh yeah, we
over
just
like weeks, and then coming off of that to this, I wasn't really scared.
We just finished Bly Manor, so
right.
I do recommend that because Bly Manor is less overtly scary than Hill House, Zach, and I feel like I'm curious.
You literally texted me last week saying that you didn't recommend it.
No, I want you to watch it so we can talk about it.
Oh.
Yeah, I think you will have severe problems with it, which is why I want you to watch it.
Oh.
But
yeah, no, thank you.
But anyway, so Julie, you're talking about the merits of the scariness, which Zach added as the B part to his question.
Yeah, I just don't see it as being that scary.
But the problem is, it is a horror movie because it's a ghost movie. So, like, I don't know. Do you like? Are there aspects of this movie that you think classify it as a horror movie?
I mean, the only time that the ghosts were even an issue was when he got shoved on that stairwell closet. What's it called?
Oh, the crawl
dumbwaiter
space
thing.
Yeah.
Like,
he got scratched up. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was the only part that was like horrifying. Like a little kid gets shoved in a dumbwaiter and comes out and is like screaming. But otherwise the ghosts weren't doing anything to him. Why? I mean, it's scary because he's alone and he's the only one that he's experiencing this
they're
by himself.
traumatizing him in enormous ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're not.
Yeah.
They're not physically doing anything to him.
Well, it's interesting because
they hadn't yet, at least.
That's true.
I mean, the fact that he can be hurt by them suggests that he he could increasingly get even more hurt.
Yeah, he could could theoretically be killed by them. Maybe it's interesting. You're touching on a thing that I think is a problem. Well, not a problem. I think it's an aspect of your horror movie viewing that I find interesting. The subgenre that you've said to me is the scariest subgenre for you, Julie, in the past is home invasion movies, because you are most affected by movies that seem to have stakes that could be ported to your life.
Yeah, I don't want to watch a home invasion movie and then be home alone and have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night.
Right, like Zach, I just keep thinking of the movie Hush that we watched. It must have been 3 years ago.
Oh, Hush,
which incredible. I mean, that movie's so good.
Although I was thinking of Funny Games, which is like
yeah.
No, thank you.
But like The Strangers and just these and Us, even really, which Us is not really a home invasion movie. It's like a satire on it, maybe.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I think so. It's interesting. So, Julie, what you're saying to me is that the stakes of this movie are you only find them like truly frightening when they become physical. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see dead people, and pretty sure I'm not dead. So I don't see I don't have a big reason for me to be scared.
You're pretty sure you haven't been shot by Donnie Wahlberg.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, so interesting, but
do you have to?
Yeah, go ahead, Mandy.
So that's interesting. Does something have to threaten you, or I don't know, maybe not just you, Julie, but I'm speaking more sort of largely. Does something have to threaten us personally in order for us to be scared by it?
Well,
I guess for me, it's
go ahead.
For me, it's even though I'm not worried about seeing dead people or anything like that, it's still, I don't know, there's something with a mood at certain points or an atmosphere, and that's what becomes the scary part, not necessarily what the outcome is.
Well, so yeah, that's true, and it's been, the question has been plaguing me. Julie doesn't watch a lot of these movies, and she also doesn't like to think in a very literary way, in a very analytical way about movies, unless it's Oscar season. So I did want to press you on what did you find effective about this movie? Because that stems off of the point that Mandy's making here, which, as a whole, the message, the overall goal of this movie seemed to be a little indulgent, maybe on the surface, don't offer much depth. But there are scenes and moments and tones that this movie strikes that really are effective, which is probably why it was so successful. So I'm just curious, is there anything in it that you can pinpoint as one that you thought was effective? I guess other than that Munchausen's scene.
I think the scene when he gets shoved into the stairwell, I thought that it was
up the spiral staircase. And
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I felt all the things that you're feeling. I understand. I felt the loneliness. But to me, it was it was more sad than scary.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that's
sure.
I mean, I mean, Mandy, you said it, lonely. I mean, the movie's lonely. He's a lonely person. I think it's partly perfected. It's perfected by the performance of Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah.
Yeah, Osment.
Osment.
Which I don't think
Osment with a T.
I don't think he ever gave a better performance, unfortunately. But I mean, his performance is amazing in this movie, but I don't know. Do you feel bad for him? I don't know that I ever fully feel bad for him, because he kind of seems like an old man. Even when he runs down the hall in his underwear having to pee, it looks like an old man.
Yeah, that is definitely an old man.
I feel very bad for him.
I feel terrible for him
because for the rest of his life, he's gonna have to quote help these ghosts instead of just them leaving him alone. They're just like going to him forever.
Yeah, it's a terrible fate. It's a terrible fate.
And that they don't know that they're dead, but he does.
Talk about lonely. I mean, talk about being a martyr too.
Yeah.
You know, it's and when you recast the film, once you know the twist that Malcolm is dead, and you just picture this boy. I mean, you humorously alluded to the fact that he's just like gone for 3 hours in the middle of the day, where he buys his own bus ticket and gets the hell out. You know, and that's funny. But like when you recast the film with that knowledge, you just think of him by himself the entire time. I mean, it's devastating. It's really sad.
It's desperately sad, for sure. For sure.
So let's move then. Let's take that. I mean, Jay, you asked Julie the question, you know, what did you find of virtue in this film? Let's turn that into a pentagram. Well, actually, no. I guess our tradition is that we start with the sheep rating, with the scare factor. So I guess let's do that first. I'll start.
Wait, actually, before we rate, can we talk about one other thing very briefly?
Sure, go ahead.
Maybe like a tight 2 each.
Great.
What did we think? So we alluded a little to the production design by talking about the class portrayal and the Philadelphia thing. What did we think of the makeup in this movie? Because I think that there were some there are no like supernatural feeling visuals. Like it's all very practical effects, like the young kid with the back of his head blown off, and even the mom turning around with the like cuts on her wrist and the black eye, and even Bruce Willis, just the fact that he was bleeding from the back and that's why he didn't know he was dead. Like all these things, like. I don't know. Do you think it was effective that M. Night Shyamalan made the choice to use editing and practical effects rather than, I don't know, do like a cross dissolve for a ghost to appear, or like use any sort of like special effects, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I was very I was actually, I would say, happy with the choices that he made. There are some things that were done that I was impressed with. Like I really liked the kind of like cinema verite style of cinematography that we had in Cole's apartment, with the kind of shaky camera following I don't remember her name, Toni Collette's character around and Cole around. And in one frame seeing all of the cabinets closed, and then suddenly in the next seeing them all open. I think that's really terrific. I think that's really effective. I think the way that Cole is framed in a lot of shots, certainly not something I would have picked up on my first watch, but like, he often is given a lot of space in the frame, and he's often off center, as if to suggest that there is a presence that's actually occupying the center, the focal point of the shot. And that to me adds maybe subconsciously to a kind of ghostly atmosphere. I like practical effects. I always will. Seeing, like at the end of the movie, if Bruce Willis were to just like dissolve, like I think I can finally go now, and he just kind of like materializes, like he's being beamed back up to the Enterprise, like that would be terrible.
But you also wouldn't count it out, because like there were a lot.
The movie would stoop there. It would go there. Yeah.
That's what I mean. There are so many things about this movie that were indulgent. It's just odd that he chose this aspect to be like restrained in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's that like moment where Toni Collette saves him from the cellar at the top of the stairs, and it slows down, and that was so silly.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I think you're right. There's actually a nice amount of restraint with the ghosts. I really love when he says there's after the bike accident, right? And he says she's standing outside my window, right? And it takes a minute for us to see her in the shot, and then we do, and it's just a second, and then she walks away. And the similar thing happens with the boy with the gun. He really just like very quickly walks across the frame.
Yeah.
And there's something about the briefness of them being on screen that I think possibly is what works for the practical effects, because they leave the frame so fast that we're not harping on the fact that they are like live actors,
and that they're like,
but it also works that they look like real people who are just in the form of like they're dead.
They're just
themselves.
gory. Yeah, they just look like how they were killed.
I think that's scarier.
Yeah. Well,
I agree,
and I almost think and you don't see the act of the gore. You see the aftermath of the gore, and it is very, very caricatured, sort of.
Yeah.
I don't know, Julie, what did you think? Because, like, you're normally disturbed by people getting hurt on film, and so you only saw people who have been hurt in this movie.
I mean, I feel like it made it less... definitely made it, like, less scary, you know, that they were, like, more realistic to me and not these, like, things dissolving on and off, and, like, they could appear in the middle of the hallway when there was nothing there before, like, that kind of thing. Like, they had to actually walk in and walk out, made them more real. The only time I was grossed out was the throw up.
The vomit, which tells you something, because there was literally a character with a hole blasted into the back of its head.
Yeah, but that was so brief.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because there could have been wispies and, like, CGI and stuff, because it was definitely in the capabilities at the time, and the fact that he chose to just make these fleeting practical moments almost like a student film would. Yeah.
Well, you know what film takes this quality and really, really expands on it in good ways is It Follows.
Yes.
And the principal actors or the principal characters of horror in It Follows are regular looking people. I mean, they're naked half the time, but they're regular looking people with some really good, convincing makeup, and all they do is walk slowly, and it's fucking scary.
Right, or like or much like Haley Joel Osment, the characters are reacting to something you can't see. So
that's right.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
true. No, and it's effective, and I think it was a good choice. But it also was odd because this movie, because then you get a line like, "You were never my number two." Like, so it's just like we're being hard on M. Night, good old M. Night here, but I think this was definitely him trying to figure out what he wanted to do, and I think he kind of struck gold with this movie inadvertently. I don't know that he deserved the success that this movie got, and I think that kind of stunted his career a little.
It may have, yeah,
because it was just such a mixed approach to this film. But anyway, sorry, we can go into the ratings now. I just wanted to talk about that because it was just like that was the key aesthetic to the horror.
No, I'm glad you brought it up.
Movie,
so why don't you stay? Let's stay in Astoria. Why don't the two of you guys? Why don't you give it your? Why don't you do both? Why don't you give it your sheep ratings and your pentagram ratings? And for those first-time listeners, you unicorn out there, we like to rate the fear factor of a film on a scale of 1 to 5 sheep. 5 sheep being, I don't know, representative of 40 or 50 sheep, I suppose. The amount of sheep you need to count in order to fall asleep. I hate this rating. That's why I always have to say something
Zach,
about it.
Zach, on a future episode, perhaps when we're alone and we aren't among mixed company, we should talk about changing the rating if it bothers you so much.
Let's just make it out of 100 sheep. That makes more sense to me.
Okay, great.
No. So on a scale of 1 to 5 sheep being extremely scary, you had to count a whole 5 sheep to fall asleep. And the same 1 to 5 scale for pentagrams, 5 pentagrams being it was a really unbelievable masterpiece, a real life-changing film for you. 1 pentagram or worse or fewer being that it was a huge waste of time. Yeah. So why don't we stay in Astoria? Why don't you guys go ahead? You can fight amongst yourself as to who goes first.
Well, I think I'm going to give this we rate this on the current watch, right? We don't rate it on all the baggage we brought with it, right?
I mean, as objective as possible is how I think of it, but yeah,
I don't know. I knew this movie was scary. I knew I had been scared by some of the visuals in this movie before, and so I really wanted it to be scary, but it did not feel scary last night. And so I'm going to give it like 1, I guess. Like, it just wasn't as scary as I remember it being. And it is by far, if you don't count The Visit, which is a truly scary movie, it is Shyamalan's scariest film. And it was a 1 for me. I don't know. What do you think? What was your scary scale, hon?
I'll give it like a 0.5. And I would say...
A 0.5. Wow.
I wasn't scared.
And you're a little scaredy cat.
I'm a scaredy cat?
Yeah, you're normally a scaredy cat.
Oh, yeah. I just wasn't that scared.
Yeah. I mean, we watched it at night. We watched it with the lights off. Yeah, and on my quality score, I think it is a competent film objectively. Like you brought up some good points, Zach. The sort of the rule of three negative space framing that the cinematographer used was effective. I think a lot of the production design and a lot of the sort of film school nerd-isms about this were very good. So I think quality is a hard thing to rate this on. I think I'm gonna give this movie a 2.5. I'm gonna split right in the middle for it. I think it's a good movie. It's a capable movie, and I think it's entertaining. It's a shame that it can't stand on its own if you know the twist, which everybody in the world should know the twist. So,
Sure.
Yeah. So it's a 2.5 for me. What about you, hon?
All right. Good. Very good. Mandy?
Wait, it's Julie's turn. She hasn't given the quality rating.
Oh,
yet.
my goodness.
Sorry.
Oh, my God.
I didn't
Oh,
jump in so fast.
Please. Take all the time.
I want to give it more because of what it is. And, had I not known, I think I would have liked it more, like I said. I'll give it a 2.
Okay.
I'll give it a 2.
Okay.
But yeah, I stand by what I said earlier. I wouldn't watch it again.
And I don't think anyone should watch it again. Like two times is too many, I think. But like 2 times is fine because you might want to go and see the clues
all the things that you didn't know the first time.
But I think a third time is just sort of a waste of an hour and 47 minutes. So
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, definitely.
over to you guys, Beacon, New York.
Okay.
All right. I think I probably liked this movie better than everyone else and was more scared by it than everyone else, maybe. I would give it 2 sheep. There were definitely a couple times I was like watching through my blanket, which is my go-to. So I still see everything that's happening, but it's a little cloudy. And I think I would give it 3.5 pentagrams. I think it's a solid movie. I think for me the thing that really doesn't work that well is a lot of the dialogue, but kind of aside from that, I think it's like maybe not a solid horror movie, but like a solid psychological thriller with some horror elements.
Yeah.
Not a super deep one, not one that like needs to be watched more than once or twice, like we've said. But very, very capable and enjoyable. Entertaining, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So for me, the sheep, one sheep. I'm not. I would have found the film spookier if I didn't know exactly when the principal jump scare, the cut to the 3 hanging people in the gymnasium was going to occur. That would have spooked me in a nice way. I think that is a really good jump scare. I just unfortunately knew exactly when it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's not a conceptually scary movie to me either. So, I mean, that's generally how I get scared the most, is if it's a concept that I find really scary. Like we were talking about Nightmare on Elm Street as a kind of conceptually scary movie.
Yeah.
If not an actually viscerally scary movie. So for me, it's a one-sheep film. I mean, thanks to you, Jay, I've become completely desensitized to horror movies. So it takes a lot. But I'm actually I am in complete agreement with my wife here. I give it 3.5 stars also, which surprised me because I thought that it individually, I think the pieces of this film are all pretty bad, but there is something to the sum of its parts that I can't shake. I mean, I thought that I was going to give it a 3, and then overnight I actually bumped it up 0.5. We spent almost no time talking about the virtues of this film, but there are definitely a few of them. I mean, I know we did talk about Toni Collette. She does a lot of lifting, a lot of heavy lifting in this film. She's absolutely just the best. And Haley Joel, I mean,
he does so much in this movie.
I do.
He's a good kid actor.
I liked him.
He's good. I think this is a nice film to look at. I think it's well shot. I think the direction is pretty good. I like how yellow it is sometimes. It's sort of like the way it's shot. It's like so yellowed, it's sort of sepia. And I think there's a lot of great, interesting stuff. that way. The dialogue blows. Listen, it's not a good movie, but it's 3.5 stars good, which is, I know, a paradox, but like, I don't know. There's just something about this film that I think is okay.
I think is okay. It becomes problematic, I think, because it's interesting that this is the rare movie that I undercut your quality rating. Because I
know it's true, very true.
Maybe it's by virtue of the films that you and I pick, but I don't think this is a bad movie, and I think that this movie is worth watching for a variety of reasons. But I just could not get past the virtue of a movie that can't be seen in it has to be seen in a vacuum for it to be truly effective. Like, there are people who walked out of the theaters having their minds blown, probably giving this a 5-star rating, because it's not a thing that's done very often, or wasn't at the time. And so, yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I was just amazed at how little I cared about this movie, even all of its virtues, all of its great cinematography, just by that one fact. And it just tells me like a lot about who M. Night Shyamalan is, you know?
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, I, for one, am glad that we watched this film, as I am with all films that I've ever seen. There are very few films that I ever say to myself, I'm sorry that I watched that.
Do you mean In the Tall Grass?
Oh, yeah. Actually, that's true. The handful of movies that I regret watching are actually movies that we've done on this podcast.
So go back and listen.
Well, Jay and Julie of Astoria, New York, thank you both so much for this excellent conversation about dead people. Mandy in Beacon, my wife, my romantic roommate, thank you for joining us. Pinkus, our cat, thanks for nothing.
Zach,
and I guess that wraps it up.
Yeah, Zach, thank you for hosting, and thanks, listener, for listening. If you like what you heard, rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and give us a follow on Spotify or wherever you listen to us. And
buy the throw pillow. We have a throw pillow.
Yeah. Check us out at fearandthere.com, and you will be
throwpillow.com.
Yeah, don't go to throwpillow.com. That very well might be a point.
fearandthere.com/throwpillow.com.
I'm going to set up that subdomain just for you, Zach. And give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. We're Fear and There. That's AND, not ampersand. And I think that's it. Just feel free to email us at fearandthere@gmail.com if you hated everything about what we said, or if you want Zachary Solomon's phone number.
All right, folks, we will see you next time. Good night out there, or good morning.
Goodbye, everyone.
So long. Bye.